A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives. Welcome to another episode, my BBs. I am so glad you are here. I'm so glad that we are queer, and we just having the best time, aren't we? A little bit of fun stuff. We are finally up and running 100% with Queerly Beloved. So if you haven't already, go over to www.queerlybeloved.shop. Get your stuff on. Go check out the Instagram. It is popping over there. And by the way, if you go to my newest YouTube video, which is me reading the homophobic comments that people send me on the YouTubes, you are going to find yourself a little coupon code. So go check that out. Get the coupon code. Come hang out. It's going to be so good. This week on the podcast, we've got my girl, Carla Sofia, aka La Mechuda. She's honestly like one of the most incredible humans I've ever met in my life. A little bit about her. She's a lesbian woman, a Latina, and a believer and lover of Jesus. For many years and after a lot of hurt and pain, she, like many of us, believed that her sexual orientation and her faith were mutually exclusive. Now, basically, after learning and researching and really coming into her own, she believes that this isn't the case, that it's possible to be queer and Christian, and she wants to show the world that LGBTQ people can live out spiritual, real, connected lives to Jesus in true and authentic ways. So welcome to this space with her where she intends to basically, debate you, analyze your shit, and question what you think you know. She is a graduate of the Reformation Project National Leadership Cohort, and she's also currently pursuing her studies in biblical sciences from the Latin American Biblical University. So go ahead and grab yourself something to drink, go grab yourself a little something, and let's dive into this conversation with my friend Carla Sofia, aka La Mechuda.
Well, basically, I'm a woman that got tired of waiting that we here in Latin America have resources about LGBTQ inclusion in churches, in Christianity. So basically, it was like, okay, we don't have content in Spanish. I read God and the Gay Christian, Matthew Vines, and I read other books, all them in English, basically. So I got tired of waiting to somebody to start doing something in our region, and basically I did it. I've been creating blog posts and video content, and I also started a podcast just to have this type of content, because when I grew up, when I basically understood that I straight and that I still love God, and I didn't need to choose between my mental health and my spirituality. So, yes. Yep. So basically, yes, I started this project that is under my nickname, La Mechuda. That is basically means the girl with the big hair. Nothing deep. Yes. That's what it means. So I started creating content. I was part of the TRP cohort, leadership cohort last year, and I actually learned about that cohort because of you. So it's quite interesting how last year turned out to be. Yes.
The year. Which is so exciting for me to see, because just like you said, there's not barely any content in Español. And also, like, when you were working on movements for equality, we want it to be like the people who it directly affects. So in your work in Latin America, I know that in your home country it was not safe for you, so you are currently seeking asylum.
Exactly, yes. I from Nicaragua in Central America, but I have to leave basically literally from one day to another for security reasons. My country is currently having one of the worst social-political crises. So since April, basically the government decided that it was a great idea to start killing people just because we didn't agree with them. So I had to leave. Yes, they knew where I was living, so it was really dangerous. So I came here to Argentina with my girlfriend. Yes.
Y'all, how long have you been together? Just curious.
Almost 2 years. Yes. And in lesbian
Ooh.
years, that's like I don't know.
You guys have already you've U-hauled a few times and probably adopted 8 children or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
Just kidding, just
Yes, of
kidding.
course. Like it's the cliche. It's actually true. I don't know why, but it's like we started living together like when we were like 2 months uh, dating time. Yeah, it was super weird. Yes, it was really fast.
Well, I don't think it was like super weird as much as it. I think there is just this ability that queer people have where I think we see people we just connect with and we just know instinctively like these are my people, this is who I could live with. And like, you know, at first, like who we are in that moment is probably, yes, I can do that. I know for me, like I moved in with my partner after 5 months and we broke up after 10 months. But it was one of those things where it's just like, I didn't really have any hesitation because just like, I knew like, I don't know, I feel like we're less afraid to say yes, which can be a good or a bad thing, depending on the situation, I guess.
It's true. Yes.
Um,
It felt natural. It was like I won't say that I was not scared because when I came out, it was like for me it was like impossible to actually find somebody
right.
to actually share a committed relationship. So I won't say that I was not scared, but it felt natural. Yes, it was.
Yeah. When you started like writing stuff and creating content under La Mechuda, what was just the general what was kind of like the general conversation that was already happening, or were you like the first person in Latin America who really started jumpstarting this conversation? Because I know it's like you're one of like the only fairly visible queer women activists in Latin America right now.
Yes, actually, I actually found like a word file in my computer that it was like from 6 years ago that it was just me. It was like something like a diary just telling me that you have to do this. There's nobody else talking about this. Don't be scared. You have a purpose. You don't want anybody else to suffer the things that you suffer. And it was like 6 years ago. But to be honest, it was hard for me to actually make the first step. I was super scared because, yes, basically no one in Nicaragua was talking about this. Back in Nicaragua, they see like the LGBTQ people like the other. We don't have a face. We don't have story. We don't have a life. We're just like this group of people, like really, yes, a homogeneous group of people that basically we don't deserve anything. So, and of course, people back in Nicaragua assume that they don't know any LGBTIQ folk. It's like, so when I started thinking about this project, I knew that I had to be public about my story, that to put my face in the videos and tell my story, because it is so, for me, stories have much more impact than theology, or to have like a really deep theological discussion is not that important as to like hearing about people's stories. So it was hard for me to make that first step. But when I started the TRP leadership cohort, it was like, okay, it's now or never. So it's now or never. And I launched the first video, and actually it went. I launched it in Facebook instead of YouTube, but it was. I didn't know it will cause that much of an impact. So of course I had the first negative comments. Of course you're a sinner. Of course you're tricking people. Of course you're Satan's. I don't know, Satan's.
Satan's agent, an agent of Satan. You have the blood of a generation on your hands.
Exactly. Yes. And it's like cute. So,
yeah.
So, but I said like, okay. But at the same time, I start receiving these private messages from, especially young people from across Latin America, telling me that they are so grateful that they found me, and that it was the first time that somebody was talking about Christianity and LGBTQ inclusion, because they knew that they were gay or bi or lesbian, etc. So, but they haven't found like somebody that were telling them that you don't have to stop being a Christian or stop being like a spiritual person and be LGBTQ. So the positive comments overpass the negative ones. So
yeah, that's so heartening and also like so interesting, where it's like it doesn't matter where you go, the narrative seems like so similar in some ways, because there's always going to be the conservative voices saying, you know, you're not believing truth, you're taking the Bible out of context, you don't like, you know, and
you're creating your own God.
And also just like Latin America is still fairly Catholic, correct?
Yes, South America, actually Central America, it's, yes, most people are Catholics, but for tradition, it's like they don't actually attend the church.
Right.
It's like my parents are Catholic, so I'm supposed to be a Catholic. But since the 80s, Central America has become one of the most evangelical regions in the whole America.
Yeah. Interesting. And what was that? Where did that influence originally come from? I know that you've done so much research around this. Like, how did that influence start coming in?
Well, basically, since Central America has suffered so much since the beginning of time, since our independence, it's like we haven't had a break. It's like war after war and dictatorship after dictatorship. So, of course, the United States, of course, yes. Yes, due to political reasons, it started basically getting into our region because they wanted to have like power in our resources, like yes, our natural resources, and of course they wanted to create the Panama Canal. So basically they so at one point in the last century, like 90% of Central American countries were under a extreme right government that, of course, was really close with the United States. So, but people start emerging, like liberation theology emerged in Latin America. Actually, the first convention was held in Colombia, the Medellin Convention, where basically it says that the church needed to be part of the social justice movement, and that they need to stop just praying and actually being with the people, and they had to ally themselves with the working class to stop this injustice. So basically, this like such a big movement emerge and start having a lot of impact in Central America, and people will start realizing that they didn't have to just accept their life and accept the treatment that the powerful people were basically giving them. So priests in El Salvador, in Nicaragua, allied themselves with these guerrillas that emerged to fight this extreme right government. And of course, that scared the people in power. So lots of really evangelical and fundamentalist missionaries start arriving to our region back in the 70s, 80s, just to fight the liberation theology, and basically say that no, you only have to care about Jesus, and you only have to care about your soul. You don't have to care because suffering is part of Christian life. So you have to, yes, of course. So you have to accept
your suffering. It's what Jesus wants for you.
Exactly. So Jesus doesn't care about the poor or yes, social injustice. No, you have to care about you only have to care about your soul. So yes, a lot of Christian fundamentalist evangelical missionaries came to our region back in the 80s. And of course, people have been suffering for decades. So if somebody come to us and tell us that, well, it's true, maybe I have to accept my suffering, and I just have to trust in this God that will give me eternal life and will give me salvation and will give me everything that I want to in the next life. It's like, so yes, so there's what, like, the boom of the evangelical movement started in our region. And right now it's sad because, for example, in Nicaragua, in my country, the denomination that have the most power are basically I don't know how to say in English, sorry, Bautistas del Sur, Southern Baptists.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, gross.
Yes. And yes, basically that's the denomination that has the whole evangelical power in Nicaragua. We don't have Methodists, we don't have Anglicans, we don't have, it's like the Catholic Church and Baptist, basically. Yeah.
Yikes. Wow. Thank you for sharing that history lesson that I think many of us should probably know better, because like we need to be more aware of the world. Something you mentioned in your presentation at TRP back in October that I thought was so interesting too is that like it was like during like the 70s and 80s that you had this big influx of mission work and like human, like it was like basically colonialism dressed up like humanitarianism, if you will. And then you said like as soon as like civil unrest started happening, it's like, oh, we're not going to send our mission trips there. Oh, we're not going to send like resources there. People just kind of like disappeared once like unrest started happening.
Yes, and I got so mad because a few years ago I used to work at American Airlines. I was one of those people that you yell at when your flight is canceled. Yeah, so I was back at the airport in Managua, and it was pretty funny because in July and in August you will see a whole plane just filled with missionary groups. Like, but you will see like 3 or 4 missionary groups from the States, the United States, of course, and all of them will see us like this little country that, of course, needs all these people just to talk us about Jesus. But it was pretty funny because they didn't know each other. It's like they were really separate groups, but basically we're only 6 million in Nicaragua. They will probably be talking to the same person like twice. I don't know. So, and it was pretty funny because once everything started, like last April, airlines had to actually cancel several flights because people weren't coming to our country. Like, for example, American Airlines had like 5 or 6 flights from the United States to Nicaragua, and they only left one because people weren't coming. So it was like, okay, so when we actually need your help, when we actually need the humanitarian help, you don't come, but you come when we were actually a really stable country. So, and we, of course, have churches and we know about Jesus. It's not that will be the first time that we hear about him, but basically, you think that we need you, the white savior, to save us, the brown-skinned people. So I was actually really mad when that happened. Yes.
Say that last part one more time.
I was actually pretty mad when I realized that flights had to be canceled because people were coming to our country, when I knew that July and August were the months that most mission trips came to our country.
Wow. So, I mean, like, it's not surprising, I suppose, because like I grew up in that culture where it was just like, hey, we're sending all of our kids. Are you going on the Nicaragua mission trip? I remember in high school, like that was the thing to do. And if you weren't going on the Nicaragua mission trip, are you really a Christian? And on this side of things,
or Costa Rica.
Or Costa Rica. What was the other one? We had some people. I think it was different parts of Mexico, like right on the like Ensenada, I think was a big one for some people. Like
Ensenada, yes.
It's just so. I mean, like, interesting is a word for it, but just like it's just like I think about my own mission trip life when I was in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, and like when I realized how much bullshit it was, I'm just like, what am I doing over here? Like,
Mm-hmm.
these people know Jesus better than I do most of the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Yes.
because they're actually like having to
Yes.
rely on that grace, on that, on the Spirit of God to do things. And on top of that, they're also not lazy, and
Mm-hmm.
they're actually like making moves in their country to make their people better, or at least trying to survive. Like, I don't know anything about that, and it was just like such a big misstep on my part
And yes,
to think I
and
had
that's the
nothing.
issue. Yes, and that's the issue. That the issue is not that we don't want you to come. It's like, no, don't come to our region. The thing is that it's not what you do, is why you do it and how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Because it's one thing to actually say, okay, I'm going to help churches back in Central America, for example. But the thing is, it's one thing to help, and the other thing is to patronize, to think
Yes.
that we need you. Like, no, it's like, work with us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, if you want to have a trip in Central America, don't see us as your project.
Mm-hmm.
See us as people that are already working in the region, that have leaders, and basically ask the leader how you can help. But don't, because it's pretty funny, because when in my evangelical years, I actually helped short-term mission groups as a translator. And it was funny because we were a group of leaders. Like, we loved Jesus, we loved God, and we knew a lot about the Bible. And the only thing that we were doing is translating. It's like, there's a group that don't know about our culture, about our people, and they are the ones that are bringing the message, and we are only just translating.
Interesting.
So, mm-hmm. And yes, I see the pictures back in my evangelical years, and just me, just there translating what this guy or this woman, that actually was the first time that was coming to Nicaragua, was going to say something really relevant to our people. Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. So,
Mm-hmm.
switching gears ever so slightly, I'm curious, I where so to be an LGBTQ person in Latin America is certainly like a different flavor or a different experience in other places. So, for most people who are coming out in Latin America, I assume it's a little bit, because the region is either Catholic or Baptist. A lot of people are struggling to
Mm-hmm.
find that balance between faith and sexuality, right?
Yes, it's super scary. And not just if you're a Christian, or that it's like the double of work, but basically, for example, I always quote Clara Morgaday, that is an evaluator and trainer in gender and development. She's from Spain, but she visited our region like 2 years ago. And basically, in her report, she says that Central America is a hell for the LGBTIQ community. She actually says that, yes, that due to the high levels of stigma and discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
during an interview after her visit, she mentioned that worldwide, Guatemala ran first in numbers of transgenders murdered, followed by Honduras and El Salvador. And it's no weird, it's not surprise. So this is not a surprise for us, because Guatemala also ran first as the most evangelical country
Hmm.
in the region. So yes, I will not say that. Yes, I will say it. It's not a coincidence. It's of course
Yeah, it's a
the
correlation
yes.
where
Mm-hmm.
there's like,
Yes.
because there is like evangelicalism informing culture. Because what's so interesting too is like how evangelicals will be like, I'm not of this world, or just like, we're not a part of this world. We got to be countercultural. I don't know if they say things like that similarly in Latin America. That's like certainly the ethos in the southern United States. But like, it's
Mm-hmm.
this feeling of just like, we have to affect and control every aspect of culture, otherwise, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Satan's gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Yes, of course,
nutshell.
because yes, you're in your evangelical bubble, and you have been told that the war, like, for example, I don't know how you say it in English, but in Spanish it's el mundo, or like
Yeah,
everything that
being in
is
the world.
yes, being in the war, yes. And of course, you actually think that if everything that is not the church is just basically evil, or innately evil. So yes, and it's sad. It's super sad, and I'm getting emotional because it's hard to be, yes, to be in this region, and it's hard because you love your country, you're taught to love your country and your people, but back here in Argentina, when I see that it's a country that it's super advanced in LGBTIQ issues, it was actually the first one that got marriage equality in Latin America. So, and see that back in Central America we're so far behind in every aspect. Yes. And I actually said this in at the TRP conference, but basically I know that maybe I won't be alive when there's, for example, marriage equality in Nicaragua, or at least that we are recognized as people. But I'm just thinking about paving the way. And like I said, maybe I know Moses, but I'm just working for the Caleb's and Joshua's. Yeah.
Girl, you better say that. And I think, like, in so many ways, I think like you are like the very beginning of that Moses moment, right? Where you get to stand up and say, like, hey, like, let my people go. And like now it's like you're like just now starting to get like the traction of it. So I'd say that like you are a Moses in many ways. And you're also like you're like I don't want to compare like different like historical figures, because just like that all has those own implications, but like you are, in my mind, and I think you are going to be like, when history books are written, you're going to be a voice that people remember, because you're doing the hard work of being first and giving people the kind of permission to go second. And to see somebody like yourself is the thing that sets people free. It's just like I didn't know that I could be queer and Christian until I saw somebody else doing it who resembled me. I didn't know that I could wear like lipstick in public until I saw another bearded guy wearing lipstick. So it's like all these different moments of giving permission to people to just do their thing. And I know it's also very different because like in your region, like if I was like out being like all dolled up in makeup, just like that could put a huge target on my back, because like it wouldn't be safe.
Yes. Absolutely. And for example, that's why visibility is so important, and that's why I decided to tell my story and to be completely honest about who I am and where do I come from. Because like, yes, I can talk about theology, but I have had really interesting messages, because here in Nicaragua, since it's a really small, well, not here in Nicaragua, I'm not in Nicaragua, but back in Nicaragua, it's a really small country, so you know everybody. It's like, at least that's the cousin or your aunt, or you know everybody.
Yeah, there's some kind of connection there for everybody.
Yes. So my mom, it was the principal of one of a really important Christian school. So I was not known as Carla Sofia. I was known as the daughter of this particular principal. So it's powerful, because I have received messages from people that were like, I studied where your mom was working, and it's such an impact that you are being so open about this, because I'm also struggling with my sexual orientation. And just to put a face that I know that people know about you and your story, it's so important. So I actually also had people where I work in a youth camp, and I was a counselor. That's extremely irresponsible, to be honest, to have people 16, 17 years old just counseling me. It's super irresponsible, but it happened. So, yeah. And people were telling me that, I remember you were my counselor back like 10 years ago, and now I see you, and I feel good about myself, because I'm actually also gay or lesbian or bi. So yes, I will say that it's scary. If you don't want to come out, you don't have to. You take your time. Every story, it's a unique story. But at one point, I will never stop thinking that visibility and just being open and honest about our life is the best resource that we have.
Yeah. There was something I was listening to Matthias's podcast, and he was talking about how, or his guest, Bishop Gene Robinson, was talking about how the reason like there's not a whole lot of movement towards equality is because people don't know that we have already existed in their midst for so long. So like to be visible is not only like this revolutionary act or this like way of really like it's revolutionary on a few counts. Like like once people see you and know who you are, it's harder to hate, I think, in some ways.
Exactly.
It's like when you have that personal connection, like, and it becomes part of like, I know for my mother, like it was like she just knew that she didn't want to lose her kid, and that's what started changing her mind. And for so many other people, it starts with that very personal connection.
Well, yes, exactly. Yes. And and for example, when besides creating the content, I actually wanted to create this group called J4, that is based in John 4, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, when Jesus goes against every system, moral, religious, even political system. So I created this group because besides educating people, you have to support, and you have to embrace, and you have to basically be there for those. I will say young people, because in my particular case, most people that reach me out are below 25 years old. Like,
right.
So I have this group that we had to meet online because it was unsafe for us to actually meet in person, because the government will think that we're planning to do something against them. So we had to, so we had to start meeting online, and we tried to be a community, at least in a virtual form, because at this particular point, every people that is in this group is all over the world. Only 2 or 3 stay in Nicaragua, but most people actually that I know, Christians or not, gays, lesbian, not almost every people that I know is not in Nicaragua right now. Yeah.
Wow. So like if someone was to like ask about like what like your vision like long term for your work would be, like what are your hopes for like J4 and your work, and just for queer folks in Nicaragua and in Latin America overall?
I have really specific goal. For example, in this year, I just want to work and meet other leaders that are emerging in Latin America, because I know people from, for example, from El Salvador or from Paraguay, here in Argentina. But the thing is that they don't have much visibility, and actually they are not that much organized. So, and I'm the only one that is actually creating content. They are just like meeting face to face and trying to create a community, but they don't know how to start educating people and start engaging in conversations with leaders in churches and or the regular folk. So, in this year, I actually want to get to know this leader and organize with them. So how we can create even more content in Spanish. And also my dream is like to come back to Nicaragua and just start conversations with churches there, and to create an even bigger community that we can actually get together and be safe and just celebrate every one of our identities.
It'll happen. It's gonna happen. Yes. I believe it. So I also know that you have a Patreon that people can support so that they can actually start getting, A, content in Spanish in the hands of people who need it, and B, also help you support your livelihood, because so that you can actually go from just like, because I know that you are like many of us, like you work a regular job and you also do all the other stuff on top of that, right?
Yes, actually, back in Nicaragua, I work freelance because I work. My day job is digital marketing, so I was able to actually manage my time. But when I came here, of course, I had to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. So I had to get that 8 to 5 job. And yes. So I launched this Patreon page because I really would love to have much more time to just create the videos that, because you do it the same, that it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So I would love to just spend at least, I don't know, my ideal would be like to work on this full time, but at least, I don't know, 60 or 70% of my time just creating content, just writing, just making this video, just connecting with other leaders. So yes, if you believe in this cause, if you want to partner with me and just support the work that we're doing in Latin America, go to my Patreon page. I would love to have your support. Yeah.
That was my conversation with Carla Sofia, aka La Mechuda. If you haven't already, you can follow her on the internet at lamechuda.com and at La Mechuda across all social media. That's LAMECHUDA. And on top of that, she is, like me, an independent creative. And so if you want to support her work of creating basic, videos, blogs, podcasts about the queer Christian experience in Español, I cannot recommend, if you're not going to support me, please, actually, if you want to, forget supporting me, go support Carla Sofia. She is probably one of the only people in Latin America who's doing this kind of work, creating content and videos to support queer Christians in Latin America. So she's a blessing in so many ways. So if you haven't already, go to patreon.com/lamechuda. Learn more about her. Even throwing $5 her way makes a lot of difference to her. So let's go ahead and get her funded, you guys. This is what the Family of God is about. This is what Queer Family does for each other. We rally and support the projects that mean something. And y'all, this really does mean something. So Carla, thank you so much for being on the show today. Te quiero mucho. And I'll talk to you soon, BB. A Tiny Revolution is supported by 129 people on Patreon, and like I just said, it's the easiest way for you to support the creatives in your life that are making the content that matters. So if you like this podcast, if you think conversations like this are important, please go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia to learn how to become a sustaining partner and take advantage of the numerous perks we've got going on over there. Also, if you don't have the coins to throw my way, my favorite thing you could do is probably to leave me a little thing in iTunes, a little 5-star review. Do it right in your app. It's super duper simple, and it takes no time whatsoever to leave some love for the pod. And it's the best way to get this in front of other people. So I'm really hoping to continue to grow this that way. That's pretty much all for me. I'm going to be in Orlando in 2 weeks for the Reformation Project National Leadership Cohort. So if you're down there, I'll see you there. I'm also going to be in LA next week. So if you're in LA, be my friend, hit me up. Let's go somewhere. Let's have some fun. This beat is sick. I want to take a ride on your disco stick. Who remembers that jam? I do. I am done talking. I love you so much. Please be sure to follow me across social media at The Kevin Garcia. Go subscribe to the blog so you can download my free ebook called Forever and Yesterday, a collection of essays. Go to queerlybeloved.shop. Get your shirts on. Get your sweaters on. Get your the crop tops are coming. The tank tops are coming for summer. And if you're not on that mailing list to get 10% off, honey, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm done talking now. Seriously. I love you. You're amazing. So until next time, make sure you go see your therapist, drink some water, take your meds, move your body, eat something delicious. Make sure you're taking some allergy medication so you can enjoy the great outdoors. I get 2 pumps of Nasonex in my nose every day, and I am good to go, honey. Let me tell you. That was so much. All right. This has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'll talk to you soon, babe. Bye.